him, I thought he was just another fan. The second time, he knew my name. The third time, he left a gift inside my locked car. For the past 5 years, Brooke Carter had built a life in New York. At 23, she was on the verge of something buyer breakout role in a psychological thriller that had the industry buzzing. Between auditions, interviews, and film shoots, she barely had time to breathe. Fame was thrilling, but it came with something else, something darker. It started with letters. At first, they were flattering, written by someone who seemed to admire her from afar. Then they became personal, too personal. Details about her daily routine, places she had been, things she had worn. There was no return address, no name, just a single signature at the bottom of every page. Yours, A. She told 2 people, Jason, her best friend, and a cinematographer she had met on set, and Ryan, her manager, who was always one step ahead of any problem. It's probably just some obsessed fan, Jason said, sipping his black coffee. Creepy, but harmless. Ryan wasn't as dismissive. This isn't normal, Brooke. You need security. She laughed it off. Maybe Jason was right. Maybe she was overreacting. Then the gifts started. A pair of earrings identical to the ones she lost last year. A book she mentioned wanting in an interview. A single white rose left on her doorstep every Sunday morning. It was as if A knew her better than she knew herself. Then, last night, everything changed. After a grueling 16-hour shoot, Brooke finally made it home. The city was quiet, a rare stillness in Manhattan. She tossed her keys onto the counter and kicked off her shoes, then stopped cold. Her bedroom door was open. She always closed it before leaving. On her bed sat a small black velvet box. Her heart pounded as she reached for it. Inside was a delicate silver ring, and beside it, a note written in careful, slanted handwriting. No one will love you like I do. Say yes. A chill ran down her spine. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Then, from somewhere inside the apartment, a floorboard creaked. Brooke stood frozen, her breath shallow. The floor creaked again, this time closer. She wasn't alone. Her mind raced. The door was locked when she came in. The windows were shut. Whoever was inside had been there before she arrived. Her gaze darted to the kitchen, where a knife block sat on the counter. Slowly, she stepped backward. The silence pressed down on her. Then, a shadow shifted in the dim hallway leading to her bedroom. A figure. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Brooke lunged for the counter, grabbing the largest knife she could. The figure moved closer. Brooke didn't wait. She swung the knife blindly, heart hammering. A sharp gasp. A body staggered back. Light flooded the hallway as Jason hit the switch, his hands raised in defense. What the hell, Brooke? She stared, knife still clenched. Jason? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I texted you I was coming over. She blinked. Her phone was in her bag, untouched. You weren't answering, he continued, noticing the open box on the bed. His face darkened. Another gift? Brooke dropped the knife onto the counter, pressing a hand to her forehead. Someone was here. Jason's expression shifted from frustration to alarm. What do you mean? She pointed at the floor, the creaks. Someone was moving. He tensed, scanning the apartment. He checked the locks, the closets, even the bathroom. Nothing. If they were here, they're gone now, he muttered, but his voice lacked confidence. Brooke picked up the note, reading it again. No one will love you like I do. Say yes. Jason took it from her, his jaw tightening. This is escalating. Brooke swallowed. Ryan's hiring security. Now. Jason didn't argue. He pulled out his phone, walking to the window as he made the call. Brooke sat on the couch, gripping her knees. Her home, the one place she felt safe, had been violated. Jason hung up. Security's coming first thing in the morning. You're not staying here tonight. She nodded, too shaken to argue. I'll stay with you, he added, just in case. She looked at him, grateful. They packed essentials and left within minutes. As Jason drove, Brooke checked her phone. One unread message. Unknown number. Why did you leave? Her blood ran cold. She turned the phone screen toward Jason. her voice barely above a whisper. "He's watching." Brooke stared at the message. The car felt colder. Jason glanced over, eyes narrowing. "Block the number." Her fingers hovered over the screen. She hesitated, then did as he said. "That won't stop him," she muttered. Jason tightened his grip on the wheel. "We'll make sure he can't get near you." The streets of Portland blurred past. Brooke exhaled slowly. Ryan called. "He's meeting us at his place," Jason said. Brooke nodded. Ryan's apartment was secure, a high-rise with cameras and security at every entrance. It was the safest option. When they arrived, Ryan was already outside, arms crossed. His expression softened when he saw Brooke. "Are you okay?" She nodded, but Jason spoke. He was in her apartment. Ryan's jaw tensed. "I already contacted security. They'll monitor the building." They headed inside. Ryan's place was spacious but cold. Minimalist decor, nothing personal. Brooke sank into the couch, exhaustion settling in. Jason paced. "We need more than security cameras." Ryan leaned against the counter. "I know a guy. Former detective. He's good at tracking people who don't want to be found." Brooke rubbed her arms. "How long has this been going on?" Jason asked. She hesitated. "A few weeks." Ryan's eyes darkened. "And you didn't tell us?" She looked away. "I thought it would stop." Jason sat beside her. "It won't." A knock at the door. Ryan checked the peephole before opening it. A man in his 40s stepped in. Short hair, sharp gaze, a presence that filled the room. Logan. Ryan made introductions. Brooke studied Logan. He wasn't the type to waste time. "Tell me everything," he said. She recounted the first note, then the flowers, the calls, the feeling of being watched. By the time she finished, Logan's expression was unreadable. "This isn't random," he finally said. "He knows you." Her stomach turned. "You recognize the handwriting?" She shook her head. "Then we start with the people in your life. Exes, colleagues, anyone with a reason to fixate on you." Jason exhaled sharply. Logan pulled out his phone. "I'll run background checks. In the meantime, you don't go anywhere alone." Brooke's phone buzzed again. "Unknown number. You can't hide from me." Her fingers tightened around the device. Logan held out his hand. "Let me trace it." She handed it over, pulse hammering. As he worked, Jason sat beside her, voice low. "We'll stop him." Brooke swallowed. Logan looked up. "This isn't over?" The room was silent except for the soft hum of Logan's laptop. Brooke sat on the couch, her fingers curled into the sleeves of her hoodie. Jason leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his gaze locked onto the screen. Ryan paced near the window, jaw tight. Logan exhaled. "The number's untraceable. It's routed through multiple servers. Whoever this is, they know what they're doing." Brooke's stomach twisted. "So he can keep contacting me, and we can't stop it." "We'll find another way," Logan said. Jason straightened. "Brooke, think carefully. Is there anyone at all who's been acting differently, watching you too closely?" She closed her eyes. "There was a guy at the coffee shop, near my apartment. Always there when I was. I thought it was a coincidence. Then a coworker, Nick. He started showing up in places he shouldn't be. But I never gave it much thought." Ryan's pacing stopped. "What do you mean?" Brooke hesitated. "A few times, I'd leave work late, and he'd be outside. Said he was waiting for a ride. Then last week, I saw him near my building. He said he had a friend who lived there." Jason swore under his breath. Logan typed quickly. "Nick's last name." "Daniels," Brooke said. Logan searched. A few moments later, he turned the screen toward them. "Nicholas Daniels, 32. No criminal record. Works in IT. But here's where it gets interesting. His last known address? It's 2 blocks from your apartment." Brooke's breath caught. "That's not all," Logan continued. 3 years ago, he was investigated for harassment. A woman filed a restraining order. She moved states a month later. Jason's hands clenched. Ryan grabbed his phone. "I'll talk to security. If he steps near the building, they'll report it." Brooke's fingers tightened around the fabric of her hoodie. "If it's him, why now?" Logan's voice was calm. "Obsession doesn't fade. Sometimes it just waits." A chill ran through her. The next morning, Brooke stayed at Ryan's place. Jason left to check her apartment. Logan kept digging. By afternoon, there was another message. Unknown number. Why are you hiding? Brooke's pulse spiked. Logan took the phone. If it's Nick, we'll know soon. Jason returned, tension in his posture. Your place was locked, but someone's been there. A coffee cup in the sink. You don't drink dark roast, do you? Brooke shook her head. Ryan stood. That's it. We're setting a trap. Logan nodded. We let him think you're alone. We watch, and we end this. Brooke's chest tightened. This was real, and it wasn't over. Brooke sat in the dimly lit apartment, her fingers gripping the edge of the couch. The plan was simple. She'd stay here alone, act normal, and wait. Jason and Ryan were watching from a car outside. Logan had hacked into the building's security system. If Nick showed up, they'd be ready. The phone vibrated. Unknown number. You shouldn't be alone tonight. Her breath hitched. She forced her hands to stay still. Another message. Unknown number. You think they can protect you? They don't know me like you do. Her stomach clenched. He was close. She stood, heart pounding. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. She walked to the window, careful not to move the curtain too much. Outside, Jason's car sat at the curb. The street was empty. She exhaled. Then a shadow moved near the entrance. A figure stepped into the light, tall, lean, wearing a dark hoodie. He looked up, directly at her window. Her blood ran cold. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I see you. Her hand shook. She pressed the emergency button on her phone, alerting the others. Seconds later, Jason's voice came through her earpiece. We see him. Stay put. She backed away, forcing herself to breathe. Downstairs, Ryan and Jason moved fast. The front door creaked open, heavy footsteps on the stairs. Then silence. Brooke's heart pounded. She strained to listen. A soft knock at her door. She didn't move. Another knock. She clenched her fists. Then Jason's voice, calm but firm. Brooke, open up. It's us. Her knees nearly gave out. She rushed to unlock the door. Jason and Ryan stepped in, scanning the apartment. Logan's voice crackled in their earpieces. He's gone. The cameras lost him near the back alley. Jason cursed under his breath. Ryan turned to Brooke. He knew you were alone. That wasn't random. She swallowed hard. He's been watching me for longer than we thought. Jason checked his phone. No new messages, no calls, nothing. He's waiting. Brooke shivered. Waiting for what? Ryan's jaw clenched. For you to be scared enough to run. She met his gaze. Then I won't. But deep down, she wasn't sure how much longer she could hold on. Brooke sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest. Jason locked the door, his expression unreadable. Ryan stood by the window, peering through the blinds. The room felt too quiet, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Logan's voice came through their earpieces. I checked the building's cameras again. No sign of him. He's not in the alley anymore. Jason ran a hand through his hair. He's playing with us. Brooke exhaled slowly. Her fingers clenched the fabric of her hoodie. He wants me to feel trapped. Ryan didn't look away from the window. He's succeeding. Jason turned to her. You need to leave town for a while. She shook her head. That's exactly what he wants. If I run, he wins. Ryan glanced at Jason, but neither of them argued. They knew Brooke wouldn't change her mind. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, nice try. But I told you, they don't know me like you do. She gritted her teeth. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Ryan took the phone from her hands, reading the message. His jaw tightened. Jason's voice was low. We need to move now. Brooke hesitated. Move where? Somewhere he won't expect. She wanted to believe that was possible, but deep down, she knew wherever they went, he'd follow. The car moved through the empty streets of Portland. Brooke sat in the back seat, eyes on the passing buildings. Jason drove in silence, his hands tight on the wheel. Ryan sat beside him, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. Brooke's phone was off. Jason had insisted. If he was tracking her, they had to cut off every signal. Where are we going? Brooke asked. her voice low. Ryan glanced at her. Safe house? She frowned. You have a safe house. Jason didn't take his eyes off the road. A friend does. Nobody knows about it, not even him. They never said his name. It made him feel closer, like he was sitting right there in the car with them. Brooke crossed her arms. She didn't like running. It felt like giving up control. They turned onto a long road lined with trees. The headlights carved a path through the darkness. How do you know he won't find us? She asked. Ryan turned in his seat. We don't. Jason parked near a cabin. It was old but sturdy, hidden behind a wall of pines. They got out, moving quickly. Inside, the air smelled like wood and dust. Jason locked the door. Ryan checked the windows. Brooke stood in the center of the room, arms still crossed. This won't stop him, she said. Jason faced her. Number, but it gives us time. Ryan pulled out his laptop, setting it on the wooden table. We need to figure out how he's doing this. Brooke exhaled. He's not using my phone. He always knows where I am, even when it's off. Jason's gaze darkened. Then it's something else. A sudden knock at the door made them all freeze. No one should know they were here. Ryan moved to the window, peering out, his face tensed. Brooke's stomach turned. Who is it? She whispered. Ryan didn't answer. He just slowly reached for his gun. The knock came again, softer this time. Brooke barely breathed. Jason and Ryan exchanged a look. No one should be here. No one should know. Ryan signaled for silence. He moved to the door, gun in hand. Jason grabbed a knife from the kitchen counter. Brooke stood still, heart pounding. Another knock. 3 slow taps. Jason held up 3 fingers. On the count of 3, Ryan would open the door. Jason would strike first if needed. Brooke stepped back, ready to run. 1, 2, 3. Ryan yanked the door open. A man stood outside, dressed in a dark jacket and jeans. His face was hidden by the shadows. He raised his hands. Not here to hurt you. Jason didn't lower the knife. Ryan kept the gun aimed. Who are you? Jason's voice was steady. The man stepped into the dim light. His face was lined, eyes sharp. Call me Owen. I know who's after you. Brooke tensed. Owen looked at her. You've seen him, haven't you? The way he moves. The way he knows where you are. Brooke swallowed. Owen exhaled. You can't run from him. Not like this. Ryan's grip on the gun tightened. You know him. Owen nodded. More than you do. Jason narrowed his eyes. How do we stop him? Owen's face darkened. First, you need to understand what he is. A heavy silence filled the room. Brooke felt a chill creep up her spine. Owen glanced at the window, then back at them. He's already close. If you want to live, you listen now. Brooke's stomach twisted. Somewhere outside, in the trees, something moved. Owen closed the door behind him. The air in the room felt heavier, like something unseen was pressing in. Brooke's fingers tightened around the fabric of her hoodie. Jason and Ryan stayed on edge. Owen's voice was low. He's not just a man, he's something else. Brooke felt her chest tighten. Jason exhaled sharply. Something else? Owen nodded. Not a ghost, not a demon. Worse. Ryan's jaw clenched. Then what is he? Owen's eyes darkened. Something that never should have existed. Silence. Outside, the trees rustled. Brooke's mind raced. Owen took a slow breath. You've all felt it, the way he watches, how the air changes, how the shadows stretch. Jason didn't respond, but Brooke knew he understood. They all did. Owen stepped closer. He doesn't just see you. He knows you, every thought, every fear. He feeds on it. Brooke shuddered. Ryan glanced at the window. How do we stop him? Owen's gaze was steady. You don't. Jason's grip on the knife tightened. Owen continued. But you can delay him. Brooke's pulse quickened. How? Owen hesitated. There's a place. Outside town. Deep in the woods. It's not safe, but it's the only chance you have. Ryan's eyes narrowed. What's there? Owen's voice dropped lower. A way to trap him. Maybe wasn't good enough. Jason exhaled. Then we move now. Owen didn't argue. Brooke glanced at the window. The darkness outside seemed deeper, thicker. Something was out there, watching, waiting. The car moved through the empty road, its headlights cutting through the thick mist. Brooke sat in the back seat, fingers gripping the edge of her hoodie as she stared out at the trees. Something about the way the branches shifted unsettled her. Jason was driving, his jaw tight, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds. Ryan sat beside him, arms crossed, a knife resting on his lap. Owen was in the back with Brooke, his face unreadable. Nobody spoke for a while. The road stretched endlessly ahead, winding through the dense forest outside town. The place Owen mentioned was still miles away, but Brooke could already feel the weight of something pressing in. It wasn't just fear. It was like the air itself carried a presence. Something watching from the dark spaces between the trees. She swallowed hard and turned to Owen. "How do you know about this place?" He didn't look at her right away. When he did, his eyes were shadowed. "I've been there before, years ago." Jason's grip tightened on the wheel. "And you made it out alive." "Barely." Silence. The wind outside picked up, rustling the trees like whispers in the dark. Brooke didn't like the way it sounded. Ryan shifted, adjusting the knife in his hand. "And you think we can trap him there?" Owen hesitated. "Maybe, if we do it right." "Not good enough," Jason muttered, pressing the gas harder. "If this thing is as dangerous as you say, maybe we should have left town instead of heading deeper into the woods." "It wouldn't matter." Owen's voice was flat. "He'd follow. There's nowhere to run." A heavy pause settled between them. Brooke clenched her hands into fists. She hated feeling helpless, hated not knowing what they were up against. The road narrowed, the trees closing in. The further they drove, the darker the night seemed to get, like they were stepping into a space untouched by time. Brooke checked her phone. No signal. Then the car jerked violently. Jason swore, struggling to keep control, as the tires skidded on something slick. The car swerved before coming to a stop on the side of the road. Brooke's heart pounded. "What was that?" Jason exhaled sharply, gripping the wheel. "I don't know." Ryan was already out of the car, flashlight in hand. Brooke followed, stepping onto the damp ground. The air smelled wrong, metallic. Owen's voice was tense. "Look." They turned their heads. A few feet ahead, the road was smeared with something dark and thick. Brooke's stomach twisted. It looked like blood. Ryan crouched down, running a hand over the wet pavement. "It's fresh." A sound broke through the silence. A slow, deliberate crack of a branch somewhere nearby. Brooke froze. Jason was already moving. "Get back in the car." Now, something moved in the trees. A shape, too tall, too thin. Brooke's breath caught. It wasn't human. Then the headlights flickered, the engine sputtered, and the thing in the woods stepped closer. Jason slammed the door shut, his breath sharp. The headlights flickered again before cutting out completely, plunging them into darkness. Brooke's pulse hammered as she pressed her back against the car. Ryan gripped his knife, eyes locked on the figure beyond the trees. Owen stood motionless, his hands clenched. The thing was watching them. The silence stretched, thick and unnatural. Then it moved. A single step forward. The crunch of leaves beneath it sent a chill through Brooke's spine. It was taller than she thought, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Jason reached for the keys, twisting them hard. The engine sputtered, but didn't start. Ryan's voice was low. "It knows we're trapped." The figure took another step, then another. Brooke's breath came shallow. It was close enough now that she could see its facer, what should have been a face. There were no eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin, stretched too tight over bone. Then, in a movement too fast for its size, it lunged. Ryan reacted first, slashing upward with the knife. The blade barely grazed it before something invisible hit him hard, sending him sprawling onto the pavement. Brooke barely had time to scream before Owen grabbed her wrist. and yanked her toward the trees. "Run!" Jason didn't hesitate, leaving the useless car behind. Brooke stumbled, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The forest was dense, the branches clawing at her arms as they pushed through. Behind them, the sound of footsteps fast, relentless. Ryan was up again, breathing hard as he sprinted beside her. "It's still following," Owen's voice was tight, urgent. "We need to lose it," Jason hissed. Up ahead, the trees opened into a clearing. At the center stood a dilapidated structure, wood rotting, windows shattered. The old hunting lodge. Brooke had heard stories about it growing up, about people disappearing inside, but right now it was their only chance. Inside, now Jason shoved the door open, the hinges groaning. They stumbled in, slamming it behind them. Brooke pressed her back against the wood, panting. The air inside was thick with dust and decay. Broken furniture littered the floor, and deep scratches marred the walls. Something had been here before them. Ryan checked the window, his face pale. It's still out there. Brooke tried to steady her breathing, her mind racing. They couldn't stay here forever, and whatever that thing was, it wasn't going to leave. Then, from the far end of the lodge, something moved. A slow dragging sound against the wood. Brooke's blood ran cold. They weren't alone. The dragging sound continued, slow and deliberate. Brooke's breath caught as she turned toward the far end of the lodge. The dim light barely reached that far, but something was moving in the shadows. Jason took a step forward, knife clenched, his muscles tense. Ryan held up a hand, signaling for silence. Owen whispered, "You hear that?" Brooke swallowed hard. It wasn't just the dragging. A faint clicking noise, like nails tapping against wood, echoed from the walls. The air inside felt heavier, thick with something unseen. Jason moved first, stepping toward the hallway that led deeper into the lodge. Brooke wanted to stop him, to say that leaving the main room was a mistake, but then a loud crash shattered the silence. Something had thrown itself against the back door. The wood groaned, splintering at the impact. Ryan spun around, eyed. "We can't stay here." Jason cursed under his breath, pushing further into the hallway. Brooke hesitated but followed, Owen close behind. The floorboards creaked beneath them, the walls lined with peeling wallpaper and deep gouges that looked too precise to be random. Brooke's fingers brushed over one, her stomach twisting at the realization they looked like claw marks. Ryan reached the end of the hallway first, stopping at a door slightly ajar. The clicking sound was louder now, coming from within. He exhaled, steadying himself before nudging the door open. The room was small, filled with dust and broken furniture. But what caught Brooke's attention wasn't the decay. It was the figure standing in the corner. At first, she thought it was a person. Tall, unmoving, its head tilted toward the ceiling. Then the light hit it, revealing skin stretched too tight over bones, eyes sunken and hollow. And it was grinning. Ryan stumbled back, slamming into Jason. The thing twitched, its head snapping toward them with an unnatural jerk. The clicking noise grew frantic, reverberating through the room. Brooke's breath came short, her feet frozen in place. The thing's jaw unhinged slightly, its grin widening into something impossible. Owen grabbed her wrist, yanking her backward. "Run!" The moment they moved, it lunged. Brooke barely registered the blur of motion before Jason shoved her aside, his knife flashing. The blade met flesh, but instead of blood, a thick black substance oozed from the wound. The creature shrieked, the sound piercing, sending Brooke's head spinning. Ryan pulled the door shut, but the thing slammed into it from the other side. The wood buckled, the hinges rattling. Owen scanned the room, his voice tight. "We need another way out. There, the window." Jason didn't hesitate. He smashed the glass with the hilt of his knife, shards scattering across the floor. The cold air rushed in, but there was no time to think. One by one, they scrambled through, feet hitting the damp earth outside. Brooke gasped for air, her pulse racing. The lodge loomed behind them, its broken window gaping like an open wound. But there was no time to stop. The trees ahead were dense, their only chance at cover. They ran, the night swallowing them whole. Then, just as Brooke dared to hope they had escaped, a sound cut through the darkness. Not from the lodge, from the trees ahead. The clicking had found them again. The clicking sound echoed through the trees. Relentless, growing louder, with every second. Brooke ran, her breath ragged, feet stumbling over roots hidden beneath the damp earth. Jason was ahead, his knife still clutched in his hand, Ryan close behind him. Owen ran beside her, glancing back over his shoulder. The lodge was barely visible now, swallowed by the night. The forest was thicker than Brooke remembered. The trees pressed in, branches clawing at her arms, the ground uneven and treacherous. She forced herself to keep moving. Slowing down meant dying. The clicking wasn't just behind them anymore. It was ahead, to the sides, closing in. Brooke's chest tightened. There was more than one. Jason stopped abruptly, holding up a hand. Brooke nearly crashed into him. His eyes darted through the darkness, scanning, calculating. Ryan bent over, hands on his knees, struggling for breath. Owen shifted beside her, tense. The clicking paused. The silence was worse. Then something moved to their left, a shadow against the trees. Jason turned, knife raised. A branch snapped. Brooke swallowed, her pulse pounding in her ears. Ryan took a slow step back. The air was thick, suffocating. Then came the whisper. Not a voice, not words, just a sound. Barely there, a breath against the wind. Brooke shivered. The shadow moved again, closer. Jason didn't wait. He lunged, the blade flashing in the dark. The moment it connected, the thing let out a screech, a sound so sharp it sent a shockwave through Brooke's skull. Ryan grabbed her arm, yanking her back as the creature flailed. Its skin writhed, shifting, the black ooze from its wound steaming in the cold air. Jason tore the knife free, but the thing didn't fall. It twisted toward him, grinning. Move Owen's voice was tight, urgent. Jason stepped back, but the creature lunged. Ryan shoved Brooke out of the way as Jason braced for impact. The thing crashed into him, sending them both to the ground. Jason struggled, the knife caught in the creature's grip. Its face was too close, jaw stretching, eyes gleaming. Brooke scrambled to her feet, heart hammering. Ryan grabbed a rock, bringing it down on the creature's skull. The impact sent it reeling, Jason shoving it off him. Owen yanked Jason up, and they ran again, deeper into the woods. The thing shrieked behind them. Brooke's legs burned, lungs aching. They had to get out of here. But where? The clicking started again, more of them, surrounding them. She could feel it. The trees blurred. Ryan tripped but caught himself. Jason muttered a curse. Then, ahead, through the dense branches light, a structure. A cabin? No time to think. They ran for it. The door was slightly open, creaking in the wind. Jason reached it first, pushing it open without hesitation. Brooke stumbled in, nearly collapsing. Ryan slammed the door shut behind them. Silence. Their breathing filled the space, heavy, uneven. The room was empty. Dust floated in the faint glow of the moon through a broken window. Jason locked the door, stepping back. Brooke tried to steady herself. Owen pressed his back to the wall, fingers gripping his knees. Ryan exhaled, rubbing his face. What now? The floor creaked. Not from them. Brooke's stomach dropped. The sound came from the other side of the room. The darkness shifted. Something was outside. The floor groaned beneath their feet. Brooke's breath caught in her throat. The others stood frozen, eyes locked on the dark corner of the cabin. The air was thick with dust and something else, something metallic, something wrong. Jason gripped his knife tighter, body rigid. Ryan reached for a piece of broken wood on the floor. Owen shifted closer to Brooke, muscles tense. A single sound cut through the silence, a slow, deliberate inhale. Brooke's pulse pounded. The shape in the corner moved, subtle but unmistakable. A figure, hunched, obscured by the shadows. The faint moonlight caught a glint of something wet along its fingers. It exhaled, low, almost like a growl. Then it took a step forward. Jason reacted first, his knife flashing as he lunged. The figure moved unnaturally fast, twisting out of reach. Brooke barely had time to register its shape before it crashed into Jason, knocking him to the ground. Ryan swung the wooden plank, hitting its shoulder with a sickening crack. The thing barely flinched. It turned its head toward him, its face stretching, jaw unhinging just a little too wide. Owen grabbed Brooke's arm. "Move." He shoved her toward the door. Jason was wrestling beneath the creature, his knife pinned under its grip. Brooke's body refused to obey. The thing leaned closer to Jason, its breath heavy, rancid. Jason strained against it, veins bulging in his neck. Ryan swung again, this time at its head. The impact sent it reeling, a guttural sound ripping from its throat. Jason rolled away, scrambling to his feet. Brooke snapped out of her trance, rushing toward the door. Owen was already there, yanking it open. Cold night air flooded the cabin. They bolted outside. Jason stumbled, Ryan catching his arm. Brooke's legs burned, but she kept running. Behind them, the cabin door slammed open. The thing was coming. The forest stretched ahead, endless. Their footsteps pounded against the damp earth, branches slashing at their skin. Brooke could hear it gaining, the unnatural clicking, the rasp of its breath. Jason cursed, his voice strained. The trees opened into a clearing. At its center, an old hunting tower, rickety but standing. Jason pointed. There Ryan didn't hesitate, sprinting for the ladder. Owen followed. Brooke reached it next, gripping the cold metal, pulling herself up. Jason was right behind her. As she climbed, she heard it, the creature crashing through the undergrowth. It didn't slow, didn't hesitate, it was going to reach them before they made it. Ryan made it to the top, grabbing Brooke's wrist, helping her over. Owen was next. Jason was almost there. Then it leaped. A blur of movement. Jason's body jerked. The thing caught his ankle. Brooke screamed. Ryan lunged, grabbing Jason's arm. The weight of the creature nearly pulled them both down. Jason gritted his teeth, slashing at it with his free hand. The blade sliced through its fingers. It let out a shriek, an inhuman wail. Jason wrenched free, scrambling onto the platform. The thing tumbled back, landing hard. But it didn't stay down. It stared up at them, its face twisting, shifting. Brooke's stomach turned. Then it grinned. The clicking started again, but not just from below. All around them in the trees. Dozens of them, waiting, watching. The air was thick with the sound. Trapped. A heavy silence settled over the group. Jason's breath was ragged, his grip white-knuckled around the knife. Brooke pressed herself against the wooden railing, heart hammering. Ryan scanned the darkness below, his fingers twitching. Owen wiped sweat from his brow, his chest rising and falling in quick, uneven motions. The clicking sound echoed, shifting, multiplying. Shapes moved in the trees. One of them stepped forward. Tall, limbs too long. Head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its skin, pale and stretched, caught the faint moonlight. The grin never faded. Another shape emerged. Then another. More eyes reflected the dim glow, watching, waiting. Brooke's stomach twisted. There were too many. Ryan pulled a flare from his jacket, fingers fumbling. He struck it. A burst of red light flared to life, casting flickering shadows over the clearing. The creatures recoiled, their movements twitchy, erratic, but they didn't retreat. Their heads jerked toward the fire, assessing, calculating. "We can't stay here," Owen muttered, voice tight. Jason's jaw clenched. No way down without going straight through them. The reality sank in. They were trapped. Brooke's mind raced. The tower was old, the wood creaking beneath them. It wouldn't hold forever. A low growl drifted from below. The letter, if that's what it was, took another step, placing one clawed hand on the base of the ladder. A slow, deliberate movement. Testing. It looked up, eyes locking onto Brooke's. She felt ice crawl up her spine. Then it climbed. Fast. Too fast. Brooke recoiled, her body reacting before her mind could catch up. Jason lunged, slamming his boot against its face. The creature reeled, but its fingers never loosened. The others moved, their clicking turning into a deafening chorus. Ryan shoved the flare toward Jason. "Burn it!" Jason didn't hesitate. He pressed the flame against the thing's arm. A screech tore through the night. The creature flailed, dropping back, hitting the ground with a sickening thud. It convulsed, its flesh smoking where the fire had touched, but it wasn't dead. Its head twisted, snapping its gaze back toward them. Then, as if some silent command had been given, the others charged. They swarmed the base of the tower, clawing, scraping, bodies piling over each other in a frenzy. The structure shook under their weight. Wood splintered. A support beam cracked. Brooke gripped the railing as the platform lurched. Owen grabbed Ryan. "We jump." Ryan shook his head. "We'll never make it." But the tower wasn't going to hold. Jason scanned the tree line. His eyes locked onto something. "The river," he said, pointing beyond the clearing. "A drop-off. Steep, but survivable. If they could reach it." The creatures climbed, their movements frantic. Brooke could hear the wood groaning, about to give. No more time. Jason grabbed her hand. Now. He didn't wait. He ran and jumped. Brooke followed. The wind tore past her. The world tilted. Cold water slammed into her, stealing her breath. Darkness swallowed everything. Water closed over Brooke's head, cold and heavy. Her body twisted in the current, tumbling through the dark. Her lungs burned. She kicked hard, forcing herself upward. Breaking the surface, she gasped, coughing. The river was fast, dragging her downstream. She scanned the darkness. Jason surfaced a few feet away, sputtering. Ryan and Owen followed, struggling to stay afloat. The shore was a blur of trees and jagged rocks. The roar of water filled her ears. Ahead, the river narrowed, churning violently. Rapids. No way to fight it. She let the current pull her, limbs burning as she tried to steer toward the bank. Jason reached for a low-hanging branch, fingers slipping before he caught hold. Brooke lunged, gripping the slick bark. Ryan crashed into her, grabbing her arm. Owen flailed, swept further down. His panicked eyes locked onto them. Jason moved fast. He yanked a vine loose from the branch, knotting it in seconds. He braced himself, throwing one end toward Owen. "Grab it." Owen's fingers brushed the rope, missed, then caught on. Jason pulled, muscles straining. The current fought back, nearly tearing Owen away. Brooke grabbed Jason's waist, anchoring him. Ryan did the same. Together they hauled Owen in, collapsing onto the muddy shore. They lay there, gasping. The forest loomed around them, dark and silent. No clicking, no movement. Brooke's pulse pounded. Did we lose them? Jason sat up, scanning the trees. For now. His voice was rough. The others followed his gaze. The tower, a pile of splintered wood barely visible in the moonlight. Nothing stirred near the wreckage. No bodies, just empty space. Brooke shivered. They're not dead. Jason nodded. Number. But they won't follow us into the water. Not tonight. The weight of it settled over them. They had survived. But the things were still out there. Watching, waiting. Brooke met Jason's eyes. We need to warn people. He nodded. No one spoke as they stood, exhaustion pulling at their limbs. They turned toward the forest, toward whatever came next.